Man, choosing a champion for Market Mastery is getting harder and harder. Ari? Nah, Alan was down bad enough for all of us last month. Maokai? No, I want to step out of the jungle for a little bit. Yumi? Who the fuck? I just want to play someone who I can carry a game with and feel like I am actually doing something for the team rather than just ganking.
Oh, like,
Hey, most CS in the game.
League of Legends. Hey guys, welcome back to Market Mastery, the series where no matter how well you play in a game, the result still isn't up to you. Don't worry, I'll talk more about that in a bit. In the last episode, Alan took us to the bot lane and taught us to get excited with Jinx, and this time we're taking it to mid to try to int as little as possible. Let's talk about Yone. Get out of here! Gosh! I brought up Yone a little bit back in the Lilia video that I did, almost a year ago at this point, sort of alluding to just how cool I find this champion. Yes, I understand that thinking Yone is cool makes me an edgelord, but ultimately, I don't care. He's a melee mid laner with 2 swords. He has 2 swords. Name one lame character with 2 swords. Okay, fair enough. Still, I love Yone, not just because of his lore or his design, but because he's insanely fun to play. Granted, it can be a bit frustrating when you feel like you're on top of the world and then die before you can even move, but when you're ahead, literally nothing in this game feels better. Prepare to meet one of the most tilting mid laners that exists right now.
no, 3 mad. Go have.
Nice job. Yone's kit is focused on staying on top of your enemies and setting up huge combos with your team, while also dealing out huge damage even in 1v1s. Yone's passive is Way of the Hunter. First off, Yone gains 2.5 times critical strike chance from items, so if you buy an item with 20 crit chance, his crit chance will increase by 50. Due to this though, he deals less crit damage than other champions, but every 1% bonus crit chance over 100 is converted into 0.4 AD. Also, his attack speed determines the cooldown of his abilities, so the higher your attack speed, the faster you can cast your spells. I know all this sounds familiar. If you've played Yasuo, it's because it's the same passive as Yasuo, but don't worry, he has more. The other half of his passive has Yone alternate between his 2 swords when auto-attacking. The first attack is normal, while the second attack deals equal parts physical and magical damage. The damage is still taken from his AD, so don't worry, you don't have to build AP on him or anything, but it just helps you cut through tanks, better than if you were just dealing full AD all the time. Yone's Q is called Mortal Steel, and once again, it sounds very similar to Yasuo, but also again has some slight differences. When pressed, Yone stabs forward with his sword, dealing damage and generating a stack, which goes away after a few seconds. Once you have 2 stacks, Yone's next Q makes him dash forward, sending out a blast of air that knocks up anything it comes into contact with. Also, this dash can go over walls. Yone's W is called Spirit Cleave. When pressed, Yone sweeps in a large cone, dealing damage and generating a shield that grows in strength the more enemies he hits, and the shield is doubled for champions hit. So if you hit 5 champions, you get a big shield. If you hit 1 champion, you get a small shield. If you only hit minions, you get an even smaller shield. Stuff like that. I'm actually going to talk about his ultimate third, and you'll see why in a second. Yone's ultimate is called Fate Sealed, which, by the way, is an insanely cool sounding ability. There's nothing I love more than watching a League game and hearing a caster scream, "He hits the Fate Sealed!" Aw, dude, it just hits so different. Anyway, it's equally cool to use on top of that. When cast, Yone dashes forward, and any champions caught in the massive rectangular hitbox are pulled to Yone's stopping point and knocked out, taking damage. When hitting a single target, Yone will only dash right behind that target, but when hitting multiple, Yone dashes to the furthest enemy or as far as the spell's hitbox if it doesn't hit anybody. This can also, of course, go over walls. Finally, Yone's E is actually the main focus of his kit and is called Soul Unbound. When cast, Yone does a slight dash forward and then leaves behind his body, entering his spirit form. During this time, his main body is untargetable, but his spirit still takes normal damage, so don't worry about that. He also gains ramping movement speed and can move through units, which is called ghosting in League terms, but, that doesn't matter. While in spirit form, if Yone damages a champion, he marks them, storing a percentage of the damage they take while Yone isn't spirit form. Upon recast, or after the duration of the spell ends, Yone snaps back to his body in an unstoppable state, consuming marks on enemy champions, dealing sword damage to them, and also cleansing himself, which is nuts. So, for example, if you use E, then deal damage to a champion, and then snap back, you will deal 25% of the damage you dealt to them again. Pretty similar to Zed's ultimate mark consuming. You know, it's like that. It's insane. It's the basis of his fights and even his lane trades. Also, small fun thing, but if you time stuff well, you can actually delay the automatic snapback by winding up an auto attack or using your Q. Anyway, that's just small things. If you ever are facing Yone and you feel like he's been in spirit form for way too long, it's probably because he knows how to do that. And of course, as with all the other abilities in this kit, this can not go over walls. Damn. Yeah, so you can see why I left his E for last, huh? Not only was that an insanely long explanation, but Yone just wouldn't be Yone if he didn't have this ability. He would just be Yasuo, but not as good. With his E, though, he can jump forward, trade, and then snap all the way back to safety while dealing massive damage to the enemy team and securing kills with the consumed mark. Oh my god, I love talking about him so much, so let's do that more with our pre-game checklist.
Okay, W Dragon.
Okay, I've gushed about him enough. Let's start talking about the things that Yone is just not good at all. That would be dealing with hard CC and mages that can just poke him to death. This isn't always true, especially if you're a Yone god or if you're a Zeka.
Light immediately dies, but of course that's kind of what's supposed to happen, as it's a massive knockup from Zeka. That I think will confirm his POG.
But I just keep my bans to stuff like Nico, Ahri, or Annie, all champions that can shut him down pretty hard, especially in team fights. For runes, we go with press the attack for auto damage and lowering cooldown since, again, high attack speed lowers Yone's cooldowns. Pair that with Triumph, Legend's Alacrity, and Last Stand to buff your marked executes. Secondarily, run Resolve with Second Wind and Overgrowth just to help your survivability, especially early in the game. For your extra stuff, you just run attack speed, adaptive damage, and then magic resist, since more often than not, you'll be facing AP mid laners. Finally, for your summoner spells, you run Flash, and then either Ignite or Teleport depending on the enemy comp. If you feel like you can get a ton of kills in your lane opponent early, run Ignite, otherwise run TP for better recalls and more teamfight power later. Honestly, also if you're playing ranked, just run TP all the time. It's the more effective macro spell. Ignite's just when you're trying to flex, which is why I ran Ignite every game. With that, the pregame is done, so let's throw some items on this man. Please. He needs items to really, just look at how slow my Q goes back up. Look at it. I need items. As you may have caught on, Yone relies heavily on items and scales like an absolute monster with them. You start out with Doran's Blade and a potion, or Doran's Shield if you're worried about being poked out in lane, you know, pretty normal for most AD laners. After that, you want to grab your attack speed boots as early as possible so you can actually start playing the game, then rush Kraken Slayer over your mythic. This item is an insane power spike for Yone, and you can noticeably see your damage ramp up with this item, plus it's pretty much all the attack speed you're going to need. Next, go Infinity Edge for your mythic. This will give you, again, insane damage. Then you go for Bloodthirster next to Lifesteal, and extra damage above 50% HP, which helps you burst out enemies in team fights.
Alright, go for it.
Yeah, I'm about to say, by the way, Nautilus, I have IE now. This doesn't work for you anymore.
After that, you can explore other options like Immortal Shield Bow for some extra life, steal and a shield, Death Stance for more survivability, or Guardian Angel to help with teamfights, and let you full send it without worry, since when you die, you automatically snap back from your E, giving you time to Guardian Angel back up. Fairly safe, not always, but it's pretty consistent. His items put focus on attack speed early and then massive damage later. With just Berserker, Greaves, and Kraken, you have plenty of attack speed, so focusing down on only damage items from there is perfectly fine. We used to run Gale Force instead of Infinity Edge, but Riot basically removed that item, and Aphelios with it, bastards. So, no more of that. Alright, I've set everything up, so now it's time to talk about laning and team fighting, and then to tell my favorite story from this whole experience that I had.
Oh my god, huge?
Cool. Laning as Yone can either be excruciating or very, very fun. As you'd expect, you start with your Q, since it's your main farming tool, especially in the early game. Even rank 1, Q does a lot of damage to minions, so you'll mainly be stacking it up on minions and using the dash part of your Q, which from now on I'll be referring to as Q3, to kill both minions and to poke a little bit. Once you hit level 2, you grab a point in your W to help with trading, and it can help you kill minions as well from a safe distance, since the hitbox is insanely huge. Then level 3, level up your E, and begin actually trading. Whenever your E is off cooldown, you want to be trading with your lane opponent. The combo of your W to give yourself a shield and the mark damage from your E makes it so if you play even decently well, every trade tends to go in your favor. Generally what you want to do is stack up your Q on minions, then use your E, hit a Q3 and a W, and then if you're right in their face, hit a couple more auto attacks and maybe another Q before snapping back to your body. Repeating this will give you a big advantage in your lane, again, granted that you play it even halfway decently well. Fun thing for all of you is that on 13.15, Yone's W shield got buffed, whereas I played on 13.13, so my trades were usually just E, Q3, W, and then get the hell out of there. Once you have your ult, it's time to really start aiming for kills, whether that be on your lane opponent or by roaming to help your other laners. Because of how many movement options Yone has, roaming is both safe and effective, so do it as much as possible. Once the laning phase is over, you're just looking to side lane and farm up, because as I've said, Yone scales very well with items, so you want plenty of gold. Heck, once I get Kraken, I start taking any raptors I can find for a little bit more gold. You can duel 1v1 most champions once you have 2 items, and in teamfights, you're usually just looking for angles to hit your ultimate on at least 3 or more enemy champions. As I mentioned a few times, Yone can be a bit susceptible to CC and being blown up, but your combos are so insane that sometimes the entire enemy team will just die before they can even move. All in all, Yone is just like Yasuo, very strong from ahead and a bit useless from behind until he gets a couple items. I can't count the number of times I would be behind and then just farm up and start hard carrying team fights, like pretty much every game you guys have been seeing during this video. Speaking of which, time for a story of my time as Yone and why I don't really recommend playing him on your own. So let's look at this specific game. Now, yeah, I know, okay, I understand my KD is absolutely horrible. I died 17 times. This is a good example of me dying a ton early game and then doing a ton of damage later. Now you may be wondering why exactly I died so much, and the answer is this guy right here, this Zac. So the game literally right before this one, I was filled to jungle. So I played Zac and we absolutely destroyed the enemy team. Like, it wasn't even funny. I think I got 13 kills. It was, I love jungle so much. This was honestly a good refresher game for me because at this point I wasn't really having many great Yone games, so popping off massively on Zac was very, very nice. Though the very next game, our jungler literally said these words, "Pick my champion." So, of course, I said Zac. I still feel like he's very strong right now, and he was even played in LCK last week, which is nuts. Anyway, this guy clearly was new to League of Legends. Look, I'm a jungler, so of course I'm going to be critical of junglers who I feel are not jungling right. But that was actually not my main problem with this guy. Yes, he didn't farm very well, he didn't gank very well, he also wasn't in objective fights. Those are all things that as a jungler really make me frustrated, but that's not the main thing that pissed me off about this guy. Very, very early on in the game, I took a bad trade into Sylas and I died. That is 100% my fault. This was still pretty early in my Yone game, so I was getting the timing of everything right. I was still figuring stuff out. But for some reason, this Zac decided that he could 1v1 a half-health Sylas. I know I haven't done a video on Sylas yet, and that probably won't be for a little bit because I'm not super great at him. But I just want you to know that he is a stupidly strong champion, especially in duels. Zac, of course, dies, and then proceeds to say that the game is over. Just immediately types, "Welp, GG," in the chat. From here, he started not showing up to team fights, walking into my lane to smite my cannon minions, and then split pushing on his own to just die when we didn't have any vision. Then, to top it all off, he ended up selling all of his items at one point. A real winner's mentality here. We fought hard and had a few great team fights, but ultimately lost. The point of me telling this story is that while Yone is insanely strong, in that exact game I was able to 1v1 the enemy Aatrox who no one else on my team could even touch, he cannot solo carry a game. Well, at least usually.
It's both of them! Oh my god!
Yeah, get out of here! You guys suck!
That was sick!
Ah! I hate League of Legends!
In conclusion, Yone is fun, strong, and badass. But ultimately, he has a ton of flaws. He really needs a team that's willing to go all in and one-shot the enemy team, and doesn't work good on teams that don't have front line to tank while he sets up his angles. If you do have that, though, and manage to get a good angle in a fight, then enjoy one of the best feelings League has to offer.
He ate me, guys. He ate me.
Oh, damn. I was wondering what happened to my damage. Take it forever.
How long
I'm
is it
coming,
gonna
I'm coming, I'm
last?
coming, I'm coming, I'm coming!
Oh, what was it?
Ah!
Tanner,
Oh, Tanner, you were so good.
Yes! Let's go!
Let's go!
Thank you guys so much for watching. This was honestly a very frustrating video to make, as no matter how well I played, I only won, I think, 1 of the 13 games I played as Yone, which doesn't make me bitter. No, not at all. Not bitter in any way possible. But I digress. I'm done with carrying, so I think next episode we're going to leave the carrying to everyone else. Hope you guys enjoyed. Bye!
Down. Down. Down.
Damn, boy! He's sick! Top tier flits, bro!